Watching frog raising videos, witnessing their aggression and bravery, I felt an intense urge to raise one myself. I imagined having a tiny warrior of my own, battling crickets and exploring his tank like a fearless beast. I got my frog by ordering it online. Yep, just a few clicks and boom. A tiny predator was on its way to my doorstep. When the package arrived, I was both excited and slightly terrified. But there he was, round, grumpy looking, and weirdly adorable. That's when it hit me, he can't just live in a cardboard box. I needed to build him a proper tank, a little jungle kingdom where he could thrive, hunt, and rule like a true Pac-Man boss. So I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. I had never built a tank before, but hey, how hard could it be? Turns out, pretty hard. First, I decided to make a fake mountain. Not just any mountain. This had to be a dramatic, mossy throne worthy of a Pac-Man frog. I grabbed a can of expanding foam and started spraying. The result? It looked like a pile of foamy scrambled eggs. I stared at it. It stared back. For a moment, I questioned all my life choices. But after a bit of carving, shaping, and a lot of patience, it started to resemble something slightly more respectable. I painted it with earthy tones, sealed it, and stuck it firmly into one corner of the tank. Then came the greenery. I carefully placed some moss, added a few fake vines, and misted everything like I was blessing a rainforest. The vibe was coming together, slowly. Next, I wanted to create a two-zone setup, half water, half land, just like in the wild, or at least how I imagine the wild looks based on Google Images. On one side, I built a small water section using smooth stones and a shallow pool, enough for soaking but not enough for my frog to reenact Titanic. On the other side, I layered in soil, leaf litter, and small hides made from bark and coconut husks. The land area had to feel soft and damp, like a tropical forest floor. Step by step, this tank stopped being a plastic box and started feeling like a living, breathing world. A miniature jungle kingdom. And soon it would have its king, grumpy, hungry, and absolutely not grateful. But that didn't matter. I was proud. I had built a home for a frog. After everything was finally set up, it was time for the main event. I gently opened the transport box, and there he was, my tiny Pac-Man frog. Round, squishy, and giving me a look like he already owned the place. I decided to introduce him to his new home by placing him down in the water section first. He just sat there at first, half floating, half sulking like a grumpy marshmallow. I watched closely, worried he might freak out or try to escape. But no, he stayed calm, took a breath, blinked, then slowly started exploring, letting the cool water soak into his little froggy skin. It was like watching a baby dragon testing out his new cave. That's when I knew he was settling in. One hop at a time. The tank wasn't just decoration anymore. It had purpose. It had a tenant. And this was only the beginning. After a while, once he seemed calm and settled in the water, I knew it was time for phase 2. The land. Slowly, I scooped him up with both hands, careful not to startle him, and gently placed him down onto the soil side of the tank. First, he didn't move, just sat there, sinking slightly into the soft, damp dirt like a marshmallow being pressed into a sponge cake. He blinked slowly, took in the new textures, the scents, the shelter. Then, with surprising confidence, he took one step forward. Then another. Then he just stopped and buried himself halfway into the dirt, like he was saying, "Yes, this is it. I live here now." I watched in awe. The land part of the tank, which I spent hours arranging with leaves, moss, and bark, was finally being used. And seeing him there, snug and relaxed, made every second of setup worth it. My frog had officially claimed his kingdom. I decided it was time for his first meal in the new tank. I dropped a few worms into the enclosure, fat, wriggly little things that started squirming around the soil like they owned the place. They had no idea what was coming. First, the frog didn't move. He looked like a rock, a round, squishy, motionless rock. The worms kept crawling, getting closer, completely unaware. And then, bam! In the blink of an eye, the frog lunged forward and snatched one up with terrifying speed. It was both horrifying and awesome. 1 second there were 5 worms. The next, only 4. Then 3. Then 2. Each strike was fast, accurate, and completely silent. It was my first time witnessing him hunt, and I just sat there, frozen, like I was watching a nature documentary in my own room. This wasn't just a cute little frog. This was a predator, a silent assassin in a mossy kingdom, and I was his humble servant, bringing him offerings. After that, I added a layer of dried leaves into the tank, not just to make it look like a tiny forest floor, but to give it that natural, lived-in feel. The crisp rustle of the leaves as they fell onto the soil made the whole setup feel instantly more alive. They weren't just decoration, they were shelter, moisture holders, hiding spots. Then came the isopods. Tiny, humble, hardworking creatures. I carefully released a small colony of them into the tank. They immediately scattered into the leaf litter, disappearing beneath the surface like they knew exactly what to do. Asterisk, asterisk. These little guys would become the cleanup crew, breaking down waste, burrowing through the soil, keeping everything fresh and balanced. It was no longer just a frog tank. It was turning into a miniature ecosystem, with layers of life working quietly beneath the surface. The frog, meanwhile, stayed still, watching, blinking slowly, half buried in the dirt. I couldn't tell if he was intrigued, indifferent, or just digesting lunch. But one thing was clear. His jungle was coming to life. The frog and the isopods actually got along quite well. It was a quiet kind of cohabitation, each minding their own business. The isopods worked hard beneath the leaves, cleaning up waste, turning over the soil like tiny gardeners. The frog mostly just sat there, watching, thinking, digesting. But of course, peace never lasts forever. Every now and then, one of the isopods would wander a bit too close. Maybe it got too bold. Maybe it was just unlucky. And in a flash snap, the frog would lunge and gulp it down without a second thought. No drama, no warning, just nature doing what nature does. It wasn't personal. It was instinct. And strangely, the isopod population seemed to bounce back just fine. They multiplied, they dug, they carried on, as if the occasional sacrifice to the Frog King was simply part of the deal. And so, the balance continued. Life, death, digestion, and poop. The full circle of a tiny jungle. I was genuinely happy to see that my little frog was doing well. He seemed comfortable, calm but alert, buried most of the time like a tiny potato with eyes. But every now and then he'd come out, take a lazy stroll around the tank, or sit proudly under a leaf like he was guarding his territory. It felt good knowing he had everything he needed. A cozy land area, a clean water spot, soft leaves to hide under, and even his own cleanup crew. Watching him just exist, in his own slow and peaceful way, brought a kind of quiet joy I didn't expect. He didn't need toys or attention or constant care, just the right environment and the occasional worm. And in return, he gave me something rare. A glimpse into a tiny, tranquil world where things moved slower,